specialty lines at Intact Insurance. I've been in the insurance industry for over 20 years, and I've been here at Intact for 3.5 of those years. I'm joined on the panel today by Bhavisha Chauhan, who's a platform and product and delivery specialist at Intact. She's been in the insurance industry for 19 years and has been at Intact for 2 years. Also on the panel is Pat Jepp, who's a product owner here at Intact. She has 7.5 years of insurance industry experience, and she's been here at Intact for 18 months. And I've also got Clive Lichetto, who is a casualty specialist underwriter and has 4 years in the industry and has been at Intact for those 4 years. Say hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
So today we would like to cover a number of themes that we think would be of interest to you. And so I'll just run through those themes now, and then I'll ask the panelists some questions that will help share our experience and impart that knowledge to you. So the key areas that we want to cover today are career entry routes into insurance, including non-linear paths, career change. We'll also try and talk a little bit about what you can do around your CV and your skills. We'll delve into kind of work experience and shadowing. We want to look at emerging roles and discuss some of those. We'll talk about career development inside large organizations. And we'd like to also discuss a little about work-life balance in this industry. So without further ado, I'm going to start with the first question. And this question is for Pat. So lots of people ask this question. So for Pat, for someone who didn't start their career in the insurance industry, how easy is it to move into the industry kind of later on, and kind of what skills would feel right to transfer? Is that something you can pick up, Pat?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Marjorie. So yes, my path into insurance was indeed very varied. I started my career in the NHS as a microbiologist. And after many years of working in the NHS, I decided that actually that wasn't for me, and I wanted a way out. And I wasn't quite sure what to do at the first. So the first thing I did was try and look at what my transferable skills were. And in that respect, at the time, it was more about healthcare, because I knew quite a lot about healthcare, but I didn't know a huge amount of about business. And therefore, I looked into roles that I could use the healthcare experience and move out of the NHS, which led me to medical sales. So I used that experience and managed to find a job in medical sales where I could demonstrate that I had transferable skills, because as a person who came from healthcare, you will notice it is quite difficult to get out of that spectrum, because people kind of pigeonhole you into, you just do healthcare, you don't understand anything other than healthcare. But actually, when you look down to it, you do have a lot of transferable skills, such as communications with all sorts of levels, doctors, nurses, patients, that sort of thing. The ability to prioritize your workload, that's quite important. So they were the sort of things that I thought, well, I could use that to move out of the industry, which worked. So I got into medical sales, and from medical sales gained a lot of experience in other areas in the business that I worked in at the time, which included project management. So I gained more experience, not just healthcare, but other types of experience and a lot of IT skills. And therefore, that opened up another array of industry that I could work in. So I used project management as a way to get out of healthcare again, to try and move away from healthcare, but sort of, you always got dragged back in a little bit. So, but trying to slowly step my way further and further from healthcare, which the project management actually helped me do. So one of the things that I did in my part-time, in my holidays, was I actually spent some of my own money to go and get myself qualified as a project manager, which then helped me emphasize on my CV and stuff as well to say that I do have these skills. And because I also had a lot of, in the sales side of things, I had a lot of exposure to analyzers, which obviously run on IT's applications. So I had a lot of IT skills that I could
Mm,
demonstrate that I had, which then
mm,
led into the IT aspect of roles. So I looked at job descriptions and then I tried to sort of adapt all my skills and highlight those ones that the job descriptions were looking for in order to
mm,
say, I'm not just a healthcare person, I do
mm.
have other skills as well. And I think I do understand. I think, Marjorie, you have similar sort of experience in that area in terms of sort of looking at your CVs and adapting it like I've done in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks. First of all, let me just say thanks, Pat, because that is a brilliant kind of example of, taking a very indirect route to get to where you want. And it feels as though it took a lot of bravery on your part and quite a lot of commitment, taking time to do the extra course in your holidays that would then give you that qualification. So really take my hat off to you for all the different steps that you took to make your sideways move into the industry. And it's all about those transferable skills. People talk about transferable skills a lot. For me, in the role that I do as a strategic account manager, and I have worked in a broker facing role for a long time. A lot of the skills that I use, I believe could be used in any industry. So you've already said good communication skills. And if you think about where you communicate in whatever job that you're doing, if you have to talk to people, persuade people, compromise, do teamwork, all of that requires good communication skills whichever industry you might be in. So think about how you communicate in your current role, or wherever you are. Even if you haven't started work, you will communicate in school, you'll communicate in sport. If you are part of a team, in your social environment, you might do volunteering, and think about how you communicate, and whether you can bring some of those skills to the fore in your CV. I think in any environment, and insurance very much is one of those, there's a lot of emphasis on relationships, building relationships, either internally with whoever is in your immediate team, within your business. And from in my case, I spend a lot of time building relationships with people outside, but it's not limited to the corporate world. I think even if you're working in a gym, or you're supporting, you know, people with young families, elderly people, even if you are doing things at school or at university, you do need to be able to get people on side, be able to help people and find ways to build bridges and connection. So those are the skills that I think that really come into pretty much any role that you need. That relationship side, it's about people at the end of the day. If you're trying to get a role, try and find a way to connect with the person that you're talking about and talking to. And very often it's about sharing your personal interests, because when you share a bit more of yourself in a professional manner, people can find some hook. So it might not be anything to do with the job that you're applying for, but if you're talking about your personal interests, and that's always a good place to share, because you come alive when you talk about your passions. And that always finds way, that's always an easy way to get people in conversation. And they then probably learn about you and you can learn about them as a way to build relationships. So I think, communication and relationship building are key in this industry. The other thing that you've talked about is prioritization and self-management of your time, because as you progress in your career, and probably from an early point, you will have to be accountable for what you do with your time and be able to manage your time really well, manage your diary, make sure that you're doing things that are impactful. So whatever you do now that involves any management of your time or looking at schedules or planning travel, those skills are hugely transferable into this industry. I did wonder actually, in terms of the non-direct ways into the industry, Clive, did you want to sort of share your experience about how you got into the insurance industry?
Yeah, sure. No, thank you, Marjorie. And obviously, it's a pleasure to be here on this BYP network as well. So it's good that seeing people join here. For me personally, so I think one of the touch things Pat touched upon and Marjorie touched upon is really, really good. Before I explain, I think what they mentioned about the key one, self-driven. A lot of what Pat was mentioning before in terms of taking that own time to make sure you maneuver into your career is so key because what you get what you make it, right? You reap what you sow. So essentially you've got to make sure that what you're doing on the outside will help contribute in terms of coming into it. A lot of what
Yeah,
we have in insurance, we have CII awards. So as long as you're actually getting invested in that one, have a look at the website and you're actively doing your personal learning along with that, that helps a lot more. And
yeah.
touching upon myself personally, so I come into the insurance, not the traditional route. I didn't, there wasn't a graduate scheme within the company. I actually joined a graduate scheme that was called East London Business Alliance, and that basically was a graduate internship for those who graduated in East London. So I went to Queen Mary University, and I didn't do finance or economics, but I did international relations. And essentially, what the graduate scheme was, it was an opportunity for those who graduated to work at any city company. So within the City of London, whether it be Bank of America, RSA, before it became Intact, was one of them as well. And that's where I applied to. Those were the two that I applied. NatWest is another one as well. So I applied there and I worked in the corporate social responsibility. So doing events similar to this, where we're having employees really give back their time to the community or speaking to
Mm,
graduates like yourselves who are probably listening
mm,
right now to be able to share what they experience and give them a pathway so that it can bridge the corporate world with the community as well, because we know that sometimes there can be a massive gap between the two. And for me, it was just over COVID, and I took the opportunity right there, and I was working for them for 6 months within a team of three, a very small team. But then after a while, they saw what the interest that I had, and they extended it to 12 months. And then before I moved over, so of course I'm an assistant specialist underwriter, and before I moved over to underwriting, my previous role, it gave me an opportunity as a graduate and an intern. I realized that the company was my oyster. I could speak to many, many people, and I'm speaking to, because it's volunteering, you're getting many people from different corners from the company who want to be interested in it. And whilst I was having one-to-ones just to understand what opportunities they wanted in volunteering, I also had a chance to understand more about insurance from their roles as well, what they were exposed to in their areas. And there was one person, to be fair, who helped me understand a bit more what insurance was about, and I was keen to understand more what did I need to do to get a direct exposure, and that's what I was leaning towards was on. And from there, there was an opportunity in Chelmsford to work in underwriting, and I moved over there for a year, and it was working in regions, so just working in small businesses within the UK. Whether it be North or Midlands, and just working with them, and slowly moved on from Chelmsford, and then our team we merged into one. So I moved from Chelmsford to London, and then essentially from there I started working on multinational policies and working then afterwards into wholesale international casualty, which basically the two different portfolios. But essentially what they are is um, the retail side is pretty much UK domiciled countries, and you're building domiciled businesses, and you're working with them to create like they might have your Tesco's, for example, who have many branches, not just within the UK, but they may have another name outside, and we're helping them just in any issues that come with them. We're helping them in that sense. And then wholesale is like single territories with that are not domiciled in the UK but domiciled elsewhere. And for me as well, once I moved over here, I didn't come from, I didn't know anyone in insurance before I came onto it. So I'm the eldest of five, so five boys. And essentially, insurance for me before I came in, never knew nothing about it. It wasn't something that I thought, oh, insurance will be something that I would do in the future. In fact, when I was doing it, like I said, I was doing international relations. I wanted to be a diplomat. I'm Congolese background, so parents first generation. They moved over in the 90s, came over here. So obviously there is that pressure that you want to be, the lawyer, the doctor, the general, traditional routes that they want your ethnic minorities to go into. But when I came into insurance, it was a whole different field. But I always say it's the baby of finance, because a lot of people when they think of finance, they think of banking, they think of,
Mm.
investment banking, all the other areas, but insurance is something that's been slept upon. And when I found out about it, it was a great opportunity, great industry that I went into, and underwriting, from going from back office to now working with broken facing and clients, is a whole different dynamic. You're involved in a lot more. You're seeing risks, you're seeing businesses come through. And just to give a back take, when people think of insurance, they think of car insurance, right? When I speak to my friends, my family, when they first thought, oh, you're an underwriter, they didn't know what that role was. They were I had to explain to them what it was, and really and truly, it was something that once they understood, it was like, wow. And the key thing is that the world's your oyster. There's many roles within insurance that you're able to get into, and one of them wasn't the traditional route, but there's many things that take place in it. So it really opened my eyes in terms of insurance coming through. So it's good to see like a lot of you are now trying to see what areas you can go into. Obviously, I'm an underwriter, but there's also other roles within the company that you can always get into as well. If you're very someone mathematical, there's actuaries as well who earn a lot of money as well, and it's a very good avenue and prosperous avenue as well. And within finance and insurance, it's a very prosperous career to come into.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Clive. And I just think you touched on so many good points. One of the ones that you talked about is if you're in a Black or ethnic minority background, and perhaps your parents are immigrants and they came here to try and make a particular life for you. We've talked about the pressures that you can be under to do a very specific type of role, or a profession. So jokes aside, you hear doctor, lawyer, pharmacist, these accountant. Those are the roles that you might have grown up hearing about or feeling pressure to do. And I think insurance is just as professional an industry, one that offers a good kind of long-term prospect, is still doing well in this very difficult economy. The insurance is still hiring people. It has longevity. And what we were saying together was insurance is kind of the backbone of the economy as well. There's pretty much nothing that can move or be sold or be built or be made without having insurance involved in that. So it is a solid profession for anyone who's in doubt. And, it's good to find out, as Clive has said, all the avenues within it. Intact is a big and long established, from the RSA days, a long established company. It's a big organization. I think, Bab, I wanted to ask you actually, if you could talk a little bit about ways that you would navigate trying to work in a large organization. And you've got lots of experience in the industry anyway, Bav.
And thanks, Marjorie. So I think, career development in large organizations like Intact and others is really about being quite intentional and taking the ownership of your own journey. I know it can be quite overwhelming, and I'm openly will talk about how overwhelming that has been at times in the past, but with lean into that kind of overwhelmment, because that often will create many more opportunities for you, as they have for myself. I've done multiple roles. Similar to Clive, I started out in underwriting, started developing those skills, realized actually, I'm quite good with people, communication, moved into the relationship management space and in claims. And then now I'm working in a completely different part of the insurance industry within kind of tech and transformation. So, your career doesn't have to be defined by the role that you entered in, unless that is an area of interest to you. Absolutely. At Intact, we have access to lots of different areas, different functions, projects, networks, often without you having to leave an organization to kind of take that next step. So for me, there's a number of things that stand out. So in a large organization, you need to be really proactive about your development. don't wait for opportunities to come to you. Like
Mm.
look at what projects are ongoing. What are your interests? Explore things like internal mobility and be really clear about where you want to grow. So if I give you an example, I have a real interest in assistive AI. I don't necessarily need to use it in my role, but I've started to have conversations with engineers within our business because I would like to understand, a little bit more about assistive AI, but how I could potentially use it in my role and improve things on my platform.
Yeah.
I would also look at things like building strong relationships and visibility. A lot of organizations like Intact, we run on, we've got lots of networks, whether they're employee led or whether they're, led within the business. It allows you to connect beyond your immediate team. It helps you learn faster and open doors you might not be aware of. So, a real great example would be look at your employee resource groups. I'm one of the co-chairs of our REACH, so that's our race, ethnicity and cultural heritage ERG, and that has completely opened my eyes to a completely, lots of different people, lots of diverse kind of people within the business, taking their views and their experiences. And now I've got a complete different network to the network that I work with on a daily basis. So I've met great people like Clive and Pat and Marjorie. And it's been great, and I've learned so much from them. And lastly, make the most out of the resources around you. Things like training. At Intact, we've got lots of things internally that really help us from a training perspective, personal development, things like even mentoring, like explore it. I've had a mentor throughout my entire career, but in kind of various guises. And as your career grows, you lean into different aspects and what you need from a mentor. And I think that's really helped ground me, help me understand my own career and where I had gaps that I needed support with. And if you actively engage in the resources that you've got around you, you'll definitely feel the full benefit.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. I really took from that, Bav, that the feeling that because there's no set way to there's no set pathway, is there, for anyone? All of us have come to insurance in very different ways, which means that you can just create your own path, is what you're saying. Obviously, the same sort of themes run through what Pat has said and what Clive has said, is that you do need some get up and go. You can't wait for something to make itself known to you. You kind of need a curiosity, don't you, to talk to people
Absolutely, yes.
and find out. Sorry, Pat, were you going to add something?
Just to say, I mean, then as Bav has said, the networking side of things are very, very crucial in large organisations, and it helps you manoeuvre. And like you said, the career paths don't have to be defined. You can make your own career path, and especially with large organisations, because there's so much more available to you. And one of the best things about larger organisations is you're able to try something out for a bit as well. So secondments. So you're in a role, you can then see, oh, I like the idea of that area. I wonder if I could try it out for a while. And sometimes you can do short-term, long-term secondments, which will then give you experience in a different area and build on your transferable skills again and knowledge of the industry.
Absolutely. And I think it's probably worth thinking also about what direction the industry is going in, because some people entering now, when I think back to what the industry looked like when I entered, and it was a while ago, I started in a temp role. I came into the industry as a temp working for a trade credit company. I had a degree in business and I did languages. I did French and a bit of Spanish, and it was a 6-month role. So as you've just said, Pat, you might be thinking that you're doing something for a short period of time. And I'm not saying there are loads of temp jobs out there now. I know the landscape's very different. But it is worth even trying something like a secondment or a short-term thing that might then lead to you making connections that then lead you somewhere else. But when I look at the industry now, and if I was joining now, I'm wondering if some of our audience might want to know, where would you head to? Like what kind of roles are emerging in the industry? And for me, I look at, how we look at risk in insurance and where we think future risks might come from. As a business, we talk about climate change a lot, and the impact of global warming and what the risks that brings for rising sea levels, storms, wind, and weather events. So anything to do with the future around managing climates and focusing on getting to a space where we have a smaller carbon footprint, I think is an interesting area to work in. So here at Intact, we write renewable energy policies. So if I was entering the industry now, I'd certainly be interested in understanding how to be an underwriter for renewable energy, or maybe looking at whether I could be a risk engineer, looking at how renewable energy plants or wind farms, for example, or biofuel or biomass plants are built, and how, the risks that they come with and how they're insured. So there are lots of climate related roles that have emerged and that didn't exist when I joined insurance, but absolutely are needed now. The other big area, I think most people will agree with, the world being so digital, is cyber. So there are lots of roles within cyber underwriting, but there are lots of peripheral roles within risk management around cyber. You will have heard what happened to M&S, or perhaps heard what happened to Co-op, Jaguar Land Rover. They had cyber attacks that almost completely brought their businesses to a standstill. So it is a very real risk, and one that really didn't exist when I joined the industry. So these kind of established or fast-growing areas, I think, are places that I might look if I was joining, and I'd be looking for companies who are writing this kind of insurance. I don't know if anybody else wanted to add to.
Yeah, I was going to add a little bit in terms of the digital side of things. So obviously my
Yes.
path into insurance was very unusual. So I've come from the IT aspect. So there's quite a lot of roles in insurance. So Bev and I are both platform product owners. So we look after the systems that the people use within the company.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned on the cyber side of things, there's also the cybersecurity IT roles that are
Yeah.
available,
Yeah.
information security roles as well.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be on the insurance writing side. You can do the back office side of things as well. So there's
Yeah.
quite a lot of opportunity. I think people forget all the bits in the background. They
Yeah.
see the insurance role, but
Yeah.
there is back office stuff. And if you're a data analyst, you're very into data. That's
Yeah.
very useful when it
Yeah.
comes to AI. I think, Clive, you've got a little bit of experience with that, haven't you? Or I think you've spoken to
Yeah,
people
I was
around
gonna
that
say
area.
definitely just touching upon your points, like one of the key things that we're seeing in underwriting especially is,
Yeah.
the use of data at the moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
telematics data is a big one. You might
Yeah.
know that in terms of young drivers, if you drive already, you know that telematics data helps with in terms of monitoring your driving. But what we're
Yeah.
seeing that now is actually coming out of car insurance. Obviously, motor insurance is compulsory within the UK,
Yeah.
but we also have employers' liability. That's
Yes.
also something that's compulsory in the UK.
Yeah.
And another thing is understanding that what we're seeing in factories now, they're using telematics data to really understand, the rain levels that happens in factories, because
Yeah.
of what we're seeing in climate change. There's many companies now that understand that the risk profile has to change.
Mm.
In Australia, for example,
Yeah.
that's traditionally a very coal-driven industry, but
Yeah.
over time now, because of climate change and what's been going on, even though
Yeah.
there's an energy transition, Trump might be stopping it, but it's still proceeding forward.
Yeah.
We're actually seeing that companies are now changing their profiles to be more and more climate, understanding. And one
Yeah.
thing I'll definitely say is that like Marjorie was saying, in terms of renewable energy, we're seeing a
Yeah.
lot more solar panels, more data centers being taken place. So definitely understanding your data there is a key one that we're seeing in insurance coming through.
That's fantastic examples as well. Thanks, Clive, for that. And we've talked about career trajectories. Clive, you did touch on your trajectory and what you've done so far.
Yeah,
If somebody did want to come into, say, an underwriting role, can you just recap on kind of what is the opportunity? What are the progressions
sure.
in pure underwriting? So we talked about all the peripheral loads of other areas within insurance that you could work in: data, IT, science. There's also governance, which Bav might have something to say about. But
Yeah,
could you just give us a picture of what someone's trajectory might be in
yeah,
underwriting?
sure. 100%. So one thing in underwriting, there's many lines of businesses. So I work in casualty, but there's also, you have property, you have a marine insurance as well, you have
Yeah,
cyber that was touched
yeah,
upon before. Real estate is another one.
yeah,
And in terms of starting your career, you could start as an underwriting assistant. And essentially what you're doing, you're understanding more the admin side of things. You're helping the team with helping them like process any businesses that come in. You're
yeah,
looking at wordings, you're looking at policies, contracts really that have been agreed by the underwriters, and you're essentially trying to understand the insurance basic terms and going forth with that. Of course, alongside of that, you'll be on the CI awards as well. So you might see there's the foundation insurance awards, and then you have your cert CII that you can do. Obviously, if you've gone to university yourself already, you do get discounts in terms of going forth and use your credits that you've done if you've done economics or finance to
that's a
be able
good
to
point,
apply
actually.
on
That's
that
a
one.
really good point. Really
So
good
that
point.
Mm.
yeah. So that does help. That does help. And then after you've done maybe a year or so in underwriting assistant, then you move up to assistant underwriter. And essentially you get more scope in terms of you're shadowed now by the underwriters when you go into client meetings or when you're facing brokers. You're getting that more of exposure there. You're not you handle some of your renewals that come in. So basically books that are accounts that are already within the business. So you're helping them in terms of renewing those policies. And then next level will be the underwriting level, which is you have more onus in terms of bringing in new accounts to come into the business. You'll have more autonomy in terms of building relationships, you're managing relationships and speaking to different people as well. And then after that, you have senior underwriter. So you don't have to go to the management level. Of course,
Yeah,
people understand that within careers there's mid-management, but if you're someone who's very technical and you enjoy, being an individual contributor, you can become a senior underwriter, specialist underwriter. Essentially, you're like one of the experts in the team within that area, and
yeah,
you're pretty much still an individual contributor. You wouldn't have any reports behind you. But then also you have an underwriting leader, and that's the management level, which combines the both, the underwriting, but then also you're dealing with a lot of the meetings, you've got a team under you that, so if you enjoy the management side, you can
yeah,
actually have that in balance as
that
well.
role
So
as well.
that's the trajectory there.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Clive. Just thinking now with all the experience that we've shared, if any of you could kind of go back to the beginning of your career and starting out, what kind of advice, what would you say to your younger self? What kind of advice would you give yourself? Bav, can I start with you? Is it all right to come to you
Yeah,
first
of
and just
course.
get that view?
Of course. So yeah, looking back, I think the one thing I wish I truly understood, looking at the insurance industry, was how vast and varied it is. And I know,
Yeah,
just from the conversations we've had now,
yeah,
I think with so many roles and so many, all the different types of roles and opportunities have been discussed, and it's not an endless list. So, I came in, it was really easy to think of it quite narrowly, like,
yeah,
oh, insurance, it's underwriting, it's
yeah,
claims, it's a
yeah,
few core roles. But what I came to understand is it's just a huge, like, broad ecosystem. There's so many opportunities, whether it's data and AI and model governance, product, customer experience, could be even regulation, which is massively important, because
yeah,
there is such an increase on customer outcomes, not just kind of
yeah,
process,
yeah,
sustainability, which we've talked about, and more than that. And I think, if I'd have realized earlier how many different paths were available, I would have maybe had that confidence to explore more
yeah,
even sooner.
yeah,
One of the things I always say to anyone that asks me about insurance, I say, there is a role for everyone, genuinely.
That's
So,
a great
and if
advice.
I always use the example, like it's a really straightforward example, but you could be a building contractor. Someone will go, what's a building contractor got to do with insurance? It doesn't make sense. But if you think about what we do in insurance, so say you have a business, they've had a claim, it means that we now need to rebuild the property or fix part of that property. We, as Intact, need those building contractors to enable us to help rebuild that business, whether it's the building and whatever it is for that customer. And if you apply that logic to other scenarios, you could have, you'll end up with a role, a doctor, anyone, a scientist, all of those things. And I think the second thing for me is really understanding the purpose behind what we do. Insurance is one of those industries people don't really think about. I think you touched on that, Marjorie, earlier, until something goes wrong. But that's when we matter the most. We're there when whether it's an individual, a business, are facing like any of their toughest moments, and we help them recover and get back on their feet. And what a fantastic industry to work in, where that is fundamentally the heart and soul of what we do as a business.
Absolutely.
Purpose changes your perspective, really. It's about, like I said before, it's not about processes, it's not about policy, it's about trust. It's about resilience and enabling people to move forward after disruption. So for me, couple of things I wish I'd known, it's that combination, the breadth of opportunity, the real world impact of the industry. And if I'd have known it earlier, I would have been more curious and more confident in my career. I do that now, obviously, and it's definitely helped me a lot, but I would have done it a lot sooner.
Oh, look, and now you've just shared all those golden nuggets with our audience, and so they now know what
No
you
rush
did.
to use them all at once.
Yeah, all of them know that now. Thank you so much, Bav, and Clive and Pat. I didn't know whether you had any further comments on that. I've got one or two.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think, like Brav said, I wish I'd been braver and been a bit more curious about the type of industries that are out there. So, as Clive touched on before, in terms of being an immigrant and your parents wanting you to follow a certain path, which is why I ended up in the NHS to start with, because they wanted me to be a doctor. But of course, in the healthcare side, there is healthcare insurance, which is the side that I came in through, then eventually ended up with Intact, but I went into AXA Health, and then that gave me I had the healthcare background, but then that helped me get my foot in the door and understand insurance. And then that's when I realized, oh my goodness, there is so much more that I could have done at a very young age and not have waited so long. So I think I wish I'd been braver and been a bit more in terms of curious about what other industries there are out there. And I might have started insurance a lot sooner.
Amazing. Amazing. I did wanted to add that, when I started my career, I kind of had quite a narrow view of what kind of person I had to be in a corporate environment. And I probably boxed myself in a lot. But what I've learned, and I hope that anyone starting their career might, and particularly in the insurance, might grab onto this, is that the most precious thing is your uniqueness in this industry. That's what makes you memorable when you meet someone. So as much as you can, and I think it is a cliche that people say, bring your whole self to work, be yourself. It is hard to do, but it's probably something worth thinking about. What are my characteristics? What are my strengths? What are the things that are completely, uniquely me? Because those are the things that people remember, and those are the things that help you to connect with other people. I wasn't able to do that for a long time. It's taken me a while. I'm finally being myself in work and out of work. But I just think we're all so completely unique. No two people are the same. So just whatever you've got in your kit bag, whatever skills you've got, just think that no one has that combination. That already makes you strong. That is already a platform for you to work at, and just really use that. So that would be what I would tell my younger self.
Yeah, totally agree. I just want to piggyback off that, to be fair. Definitely coming in insurance, like, it's not without its challenges, like you mentioned. When we come, the backgrounds that we come from, we already stick out like a
Mm.
sore thumb.
Yeah,
And one of the biggest ones for me was, so I came in the industry with long hair,
mhm,
essentially, and obviously in the back of my mind, it was always like hair or something, especially more with women, but just with men as well with long hair, is always been looked frowned upon in a way. So
Yeah.
it was always on the back of my mind that coming through with long hair, how would that do in terms of my career as well?
yeah,
But essentially, the key one thing was I wish in the beginning was being involved, like we all mentioned, that you are unique in your own way. You are
yeah,
unique in the terms of what you bring, and remember that you're in this room for a reason. You know, you
mm,
wouldn't they would have chosen someone else if you didn't belong here. So it's
mm,
always having that um idea in your mind that you can be yourself. And today, obviously, I've cut my hair now in terms of years, but it's more out of my own preference rather than someone forcing me to do so.
yeah,
And I see today, even that we have young grads here, you know, who come from similar backgrounds like myself, and they have long hair, and it's not
yeah,
frowned upon. They're actually embraced upon, you know. And for me, it
yeah,
makes me smile because
yeah,
there's more of that now, and that's what we're encouraging within the insurance market, to be
yeah,
yourself, to bring your whole self in,
yeah,
because you realize that there's more allies that we have today in terms of bringing. They want to see you grow, especially if you're young, starting out as well. They understand that you don't know what you don't know, and
yeah,
essentially, when you come as you are, that you're
mm,
able to be more, you're trusted more than someone who's trying
mm,
to be perfect the whole way through. So just
yeah.
wanted to add that as well.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Now, I'm just wondering if there are any questions. I've seen some things pinging around, and Bumi, I don't know whether there are any questions that you'd like us to answer. I'm just mindful of the time because we've only got 15 minutes left.
Absolutely. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
I
Thank
hope there
you.
is no static in my background.
No,
Yeah.
we're all good.
That's so good. Okay, all right. So we actually have a ton of amazing questions, and I'm just collating them. But I can go ahead and ask the first one. So
Thank you.
I think this question might go to Clive. What advice would you give to someone doing risk in financial service who's trying to pivot? Would it be best to apply similar role level or apply for entry level roles to get that basic understanding of insurance first? I hope that came across clearly.
Yeah. So I guess the main thing is that we were mentioning before, like everything's transferable. And I guess, to be fair, start off with an entry role. You don't want to go for something that might be too big for you in terms of the jump, but if you really believe that you can do it, then do so. But I'll say start off with entry roles. There's many people who have gone into entry roles and only started 6 months, and then within the team they've been able to progress quickly.
Yeah.
So my biggest one is start off with an entry role, understand the basics of insurance first, and whilst you're doing that, you'll have actually more time to do studies on the outside. Because one thing I realized myself, so I didn't do underwriting assistant. I went straight into assistant underwriter, and
Mm,
balancing my studies with the on the job training was a
mm.
lot. But I got through it. But it
Well
takes it
done.
takes the time. It takes its time. But just having managing expectation, because I know at the end of the day, you don't want the job to consume you. You still want a social life and having that balance as well. So start off with an entry role and then work your way from there. Hope that helps.
All right, beautiful. Does anyone want to contribute to that before we go to the next question?
I can just echo the same thing I did because I've made different career shifts in my life. I always then, it feels like a backward step, but it's not. To start, sort of move, do a sideways, almost a start at entry level again in the career path you then want to go into. So I think it does make a difference because then you start to understand the area that you're going into better and helps you progress quicker. So I
I've
totally
done it
agree with
three
that.
times, three
Yeah,
times.
exactly.
Throughout,
Yeah,
in the 19 years that I've been in insurance, and I would do it again if it's the right thing,
yeah,
thing for me or the right role.
yeah.
So it's good that we have you now, Bavisha, because the next question I think you would do justice to this. So the question is, with technology and AI changing the workplace so quickly, what skills should young professionals focus on developing to stay relevant in the industry?
I think there's this bit around like being curious. So one of the things I've always, talked about in my journey, is, keeping up with the times. It's really as simple as that. So like understanding, with the rise of things like AI, how is it being used within your industry? How is it being utilized? Look for opportunities to understand it in more detail. I think people are quite scared of AI, and I understand that, because it is used with wrong intentions, and if you think about things like social media, etc. But be curious. So if there are opportunities within your business, like we have at Intact, where there's lots of information on AI, how it's being used in the business, how it's utilized, working groups, get involved in them, get to understand it. Even, sounds really daft, but even down to, for example, using Copilot in your day-to-day, like
Yes.
it's genuinely changed my life. I was very like, oh no, I'm not, what's this? I'm not using this. I know what I'm doing. But actually, I use Copilot so much now, in terms of using it as a tool to improve the skills that I've already got, and actually make me more efficient without losing the quality. So it's all about being curious.
Being
Because that,
smart, using
Yeah, I was going to
smart
add to
use of technology. Yeah.
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah, it's there for a reason. It's there to make us more productive, but it's also there to help us drive better results. So you
I was going to add to that. Sorry, Av, are you done? Sorry,
yeah,
I'm
I'm good.
jumping in.
Don't worry.
I was going to add to that because so I feel, I'll put my hand on my heart. I feel a generational gap between myself and, say, some of the apprentices that we've been hiring and some of the graduates that we've been hiring. So I see an opportunity for me to learn from the graduates. So as a graduate, if you're coming in with whatever you think is a basic kind of tech or social media or digital understanding, purely based on the time that you have grown up. And I can't tell, and I don't mean to be talking about age as such, I can't tell the ages of people on this audience, but just say you're at the beginning of your career now. You might be a graduate, you might be at apprentice age, I'm not sure. You would have grown up in a time with exponential growth in digital communication, technology. It's actually your life. Whereas I'm embarrassed. No, I'm not embarrassed. I'm proud to say when I was at uni, we didn't even have the internet. It wasn't a thing. I had to go to the library and read stuff in books and write my essays with pen. And so I find that youngsters have a lot to offer that they take for granted. So if you are going to a role, don't take for granted what you do naturally, because you might be actually very helpful to people that have been in the industry for a longer time. And that should be a platform that you take some confidence in. The speed that you can assimilate information or intuitively work how to use apps is special. There are apps that are developed to be intuitive, so you don't have a manual how to use it. And someone who's grown up using apps will be just much quicker at learning how they work and finding their way around. So that's something to bear in mind. What I would say, though, back to the human aspect of this, if you're being interviewed, for example, and you use too much AI, you've got to understand that the person interviewing you can absolutely tell the difference between you being authentic, talking about what your strengths are, yourself, your passions, and AI. There's something that I think is quite attractive is to use AI for maybe interview answers or job applications. And AI definitely has got its uses, but just remember that it's a human that's interviewing you, a human that's hiring you and going to work with you. So make sure that you always have that kind of human element to any technology or any digital work that you're doing. Your human skills are equally important.
Yeah, don't lose
All
your
right. So
authenticity.
go ahead. Go ahead, please.
No, I was just saying it's all about also not losing your authenticity,
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
being you.
All right. So good that we have the mic with you, Marjorie. There is a very interesting question. For someone hoping to build a long-term career in insurance or finance, what advice would you give today that will still be relevant 10 years from now?
I wish I had a crystal ball to tell you what was relevant now and going to be relevant in 10 years. I think we've touched about, I touched on a few things. Advice that I would give somebody is to understand what your values are, your own values, and try to live and work with your values, because your core values, whatever they might be, they will still be your values in 10 years' time. The basic, what you want from your life, the things that you think are important, the time, what you like to spend your time on. You do need to think about yourself, because whilst we do mature and change, actually, personal values and goals tend to not change. So once you think about what you need and what you want to be fulfilled in a role, then you can, it doesn't matter where you're working, you will have that as your baseline to say, this is what I want to do. This matches it. That's great. This doesn't match it. I'm not going to stay in this job because this doesn't do enough for me. You've got to understand why you do things, and that usually comes from your own values. We touched a tiny little bit about work-life balance, and for me, I've always had that in my mind, of having a good work-life balance, and this is not for everyone. This is not everyone's path. I always wanted to have a family. And so a lot of the decisions that I have made throughout my career have been around, is this something that is sustainable if I want to have a family? Or now I've got a family, how do I work in such a way that I can still try and do the very difficult juggle of work and life? If that is your value, you might have a completely different set of values, but I think your personal values don't change. So get to know what's important to you. It also helps to, one, let you be yourself, but also allows people to know what your brand is, like what you're about. If you understand that and you're able to work in an environment that allows that to flourish. So aim to stick to your own values. And practical skills for 10 years' time, I think you do need to keep up with current affairs. Do read about what's happening in the world. Do read about long-term strategic things that are happening. So we've talked about climate, we've talked about cyber. There is a lot of sort of geopolitical instability at the moment. And all of those things, it is worth keeping up with them, because those outside things definitely come back into insurance, and they come straight back into your life itself. So my advice would be to try and keep up with current affairs, and try and navigate your career according to what you think you need. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it does. And I'm going to go over to you, Clive. It's two questions in one. I'm going to combine them. So someone has asked that you mentioned volunteering while you were speaking. What was the name of the organization? And they've also asked, are there any roles within insurance that people often overlook, but which can provide a great entry point into the industry?
Yeah. So the role the company I went into was East London Business Alliance. They've got a website as well, so it's definitely good to look into that one. There's a graduate internship called the Eagles, that I joined. So I joined back in 2021, I think it was. But yeah, definitely go for that one if you're looking for opportunities there. And in terms of roles, I think there are many roles that can be overlooked. I think Bav shared some as well uh, earlier, and corporate social responsibility was one of them. I think we very small team of three, but look how that allowed me just to see insurance from a big standpoint. Obviously, I'm not working in the team anymore, but it was the but the bread and butter for me to come in and really understand, okay, cool, what insurance is really about. So in terms of roles, back office roles, definitely. Pat mentioned it as well. They get looked upon. People will see insurance and think underwriting and claims are the main two roles, but we've got a breadth of roles within the company right now that many people don't realize you can actually get involved in, and there's a role for you in every role. So in terms of specific, there's many roles. I don't know off the top of my head in terms of where to go, but I think hopefully it answers your question in terms of, I would say have a look at our Intact website as well. There's vacancies on there that will help you understand what roles are actually out there. But
Absolutely.
definitely the entry roles there that will help. So hopefully that answers.
Absolutely.
If
And
I
I
can
have
add,
shared absolutely,
sorry, I
absolutely.
was just going to add one of the other entry roles that when I worked for AXA Health, people started on and sometimes overlook is call centres. It's a good entry point, but then once you're in the business, then lets you navigate around and see other opportunities. So don't dismiss call centres. They can be very useful and a very good place to learn about the industry.
Great one, Pat. And we are coming to you, Mel. We have a ton of recruitment questions. I'm just trying to ensure we have them all in one place. This is a very interesting one as well. This might be your entry, Mel. I'm not sure. When reviewing application, what's one thing that immediately catches your attention on the CV, especially for early career professionals?
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Mel Payne, I'm the Talent Acquisition Manager, and I would say don't worry too much about structure and focus more on, like others have said, being authentic in your answers. So I know some people put fancy photos and things like that on. We don't look for that. We're literally looking at the role profile, so the job description, and we're comparing your CV against that to say, these are all the skills that are absolutely essential that we're looking for, that we know that you need to have in order to be successful in the role. And then we look at the CV to see, are there genuine circumstances and skills that you've listed there that would match the role profile, and therefore we'd then contact you and do a telephone interview. So it's not one thing, because actually it is very much role specific as to what we would look for in the individual, but there isn't, fancy formats and all of that. They may look cool, but it's in that detail that would make you stand out and progress forward.
Oh, thank you, Mel. That's a good one. And we also have someone who has asked, I've not been able to secure an internship or formal work experience. What are some ways that I can demonstrate my interest and potential to employers such as Intact Insurance?
Yeah. Go on.
No, go on, Mel.
No, you go for it, Marjorie. You're fine.
Oh, no. I was just thinking that someone who hasn't secured an internship might want to follow not just Intact, obviously we'd love you to, but using LinkedIn to follow different organizations online, and to see whether you can, just like this webinar events, there are lots of webinars that are free to join. There are associations like I get the Insurance Cultural Awareness Network that are constantly doing events. And I think that sometimes that kind of environment might give you food for thought, and you might run into people who give you ideas and help you build your network. So as many free events as you can go to, either organized, online or in person. That's one of the things that I think people should explore. Those networks are not just for people who are already in roles in the industry. Sorry, Mel, you go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that in terms of researching the company that you're applying for the internship is critical, and really looking at their values, their culture, why it is that you want to work for that particular company, and what you're going to bring to them in terms of transferable skills. So do your homework, show your passion. And there's also, like for Intact, there's an email address that people can reach out to. So if you want to know more, or the hiring manager, we can get you in contact, and we can also do some preparation in terms of interviews, etc., ahead of that, should you be invited to one. So we try and support you along the way to make sure that you're bringing out your best self. We appreciate you're going to be nervous, but we want you to be successful. So we try and make the atmosphere as easy as we can in order to get the true view out at interview and hopefully go on to an offer.
That is such an amazing experience that you guys have mapped out. I love that. Also, Bavisha has dropped the resource, and I've just shared that with everyone. A lot of people have asked for resources, so I have just shared that with you all. Now, there is another question. Like I told you, Mel, there are a lot of questions for you. So this person has asked, to what degree is age a disadvantage, as most employers would usually prefer to hire younger candidates? So that's the question.
Yeah, and I can honestly say for us, it isn't a consideration at all. It's not something that people put on their CV, so it's not often something that is easily identifiable anyway. But in terms of people attending for interview, we do operate on a strict, have you got the skills to be successful in this role? And it doesn't matter what age you are in doing that, you know, young, old, in between, it really isn't a consideration for us. And just on the flip side of that, you know, a lot of people say companies are looking for young talent. Actually, there are many companies out there now trying to look at how do we get potential retired age people looking for work. You know, I guess the way the economy is at the moment, some people do want to remain within work, but they don't want to necessarily progress their careers. They've had that. They're happy to come in and do a lower level work. And actually, you know, the aging population and the way it is, there's absolutely a space for that in many organisations now. But yeah, I can hand on heart say it's not a consideration for us at all.
Okay. Thank you. I think we just got this question is so brilliant. And I think you can speak to this as well, Mel, and anyone else on the team. What does career progression typically look like within a large organization as in tax insurance? And how easy is it to move between different teams or functions? Lovely one.
I'm happy to start off, but I know the team have all progressed within their careers at Intact.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It is part of our employee proposition. So, you know, we do say grow with us, and we take that very seriously. So there is definitely lots of opportunity for progression. We have lots of talent programs, especially within the early career space, but even so, even right up at senior level, we have a huge resource of talent and learning opportunities that people can go, whether that's online, whether it be books, whether it be classroom sessions. We're really big on candid feedback and using that to be able to progress. And like some of the team have said today, you know, sometimes it's a sideways move, sometimes it's a backwards move in order to then get your trajectory up. But yeah, it's a huge part of who we are and what we do. And the fact that it is part of our employee promise just goes to show how seriously invested we are in that. But teams, do you want to add anybody that's specifically moved onwards and upwards?
I suppose I've done a sideways move at Intact. So I started off as a platform product owner for a certain area, and then actually it wasn't quite working out that well. And then I saw an opportunity again as a platform product owner, but in a different area. So we sort of, I just moved across really. So you can do crossways moves within Intact, and I'm extremely happy in the role I'm in now. Loving it.
All right. Love that.
I was just going to add one point about that. If you want to do something, make sure people know.
Yeah.
That's just one advice I would give. Sometimes you're kind of thinking, oh, I'd like to do this, and you kind of might be planning how you're going to try and make that move, but you haven't told anyone. And you should drop it into conversation as naturally as you can, because maybe that role doesn't exist or there isn't a vacancy in the team. But because you have let people know, or let your manager know in your half-year reviews, this is where I want to go, this is where I want to go. One day, someone will be looking for that role and someone else will go, I know someone who wants to do that. I think that it's a form of networking, but it's also expressing your intentions as openly as you can. That can be
Really?
quite powerful.
I know a real life example of someone I've spoken to like this week doing exactly the same thing. They work as a project manager, predominantly in regulatory change. And, you know, in their own time, they're doing some, you know, they're kind of working on like coding and scratching up on coding
Yeah.
and what does that mean, and they're doing their own little projects at home. And you know what, they came in the office this week and happened to be sat next to one of the leaders in our data engineering space. Just got chatting and made it really clear that started chatting about, oh, I'm doing this and it's an area that I'm really interested in. And within a few days, it's opened up so many doors for him, to the point where he's now getting support with his own side project, and getting access to kind of modules and programs and things like that he can play around on, which you wouldn't ordinarily have access to help him with those goals. And he's now starting to have career conversations and looking at what does that mean for me in terms of if this goes really well for me. And that's a complete career switch for him. And if he hadn't have had that conversation or made it clear to someone he had that interest, it would never have happened.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is such a fantastic experience. Thank you so much for sharing that. And actually ties to a question that I have been looking at and just trying to figure out how to frame it. But before I go right into that, we have to drop off really soon. I will take the 3 questions that keep popping up that I think I can answer. So someone has asked, I would be interested to know how I can join the marketing or employee engagement team. Do they have a talent pool I could share my experience with? Yes, I have shared the link in the chat. So please use that link. There's a ton of resources there. Another question is, what are the resources that beginners can start undertaking to gain experience in healthcare insurance? We have shared links in the chat. Please use that as well. And this is a very interesting question, and it ties to what we were just speaking about. And this is the last question we'll take for this session. What networking opportunities can we attempt to help seek a role? But I'm also going to add that into another question that we've had. But in terms of networking experiences, this is the type of networking experience. And we also have the BYP Career Set Leadership Conference coming up in September. So don't forget to stay tuned to that. But so this person is asked, how do you maximize your the opportunity when you attend career fest type of event? So this is going to sit with you, Mel. So if I walk up to a recruiter, how do I have that maybe 5-10 second, 1 minute elevator pitch with this recruiter while there's a lot of talent going around? How do I immediately stand out to you? And how do I really maximize just engaging on such platforms?
And I think it is, as the team has said, it is being curious. So it is asking those questions. That's definitely going to make you stand out. What are you asking? What are you wanting to know? Is it about the skill? Is it about the culture? Being true to yourself, though. So like we've said, don't just go and use AI and think, how do I be the best that I can be at these kind of events? We do want to see the authentic you. But ultimately, yes, it is the interest. What do you know? What do you want to know? And making sure that you're being seen and you're getting all of the information that you need, but also showcasing yourself and those transferable skills that you have. So using that opportunity to really bring to life who you are and what you could bring to the company.
All right. Thank you so much, Mel. Did anyone else want to speak to that before we say goodbye for the evening? Okay, there are no more comments. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Please take advantage of the links in the chat box. There are amazing opportunities over at Intact Insurance. You do not want to miss out on those. This has been such an amazing session. Thank you so much, Mel, Marjorie, Bavisha, Clive, and Pat. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone. You will meet again on another webinar. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you.